Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. Senior isolation and loneliness. It's a big topic and it's a big issue in San Diego. So I thought I would bring someone on who can talk about that along with his dog who helps him out. I'm going to introduce you to Marc Prescott. He's a senior care specialist along with his dog, Murray. So I don't know if Murray can say hi.
He can try.
He can try. But Marc can say hi. Marc, good seeing you.
Yeah, you too, Bryan. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely.
Appreciate it.
My pleasure. So we had a chance to meet not too long ago, and I love talking to you about the work you do. And of course, I got to meet Murray at the same time. I said, we got to get Murray on set.
Everybody wants him.
Right. Well,
right.
You come along with it too.
Yeah, it's okay.
Yeah. So it's cool.
Yeah.
So this is not your first gig. I mean, tell us about your media experience and your other experiences before you got into senior care.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. So it started about. I did media for about 15 years. I grew up in San Diego, then I went to college in Orange County, and I thought I was going to be the next big sportscaster. So I started bouncing around the country. I did some sports, I did some news. So I did that for about 15 years or so. I came back here and in '02 and worked at the CBS affiliate in San Diego, which was great. And I did that for about 5 years. And that was kind of the media background, and then I moved into senior care and healthcare kind of shortly thereafter.
Got it. And so there's a coffee shop involved somewhere. So there's a story. I want you to talk about the coffee shop situation.
Yeah. So there was a time when I I was kind of in between things. I was working on a couple different projects in media and video. So I had some time on my hands, and I live in Rancho Bernardo, a little suburb of San Diego, and it was interesting because I used to go down there with the dog, and I would just hang out. I would be like most people that you'd see, looking at my phone or whatever, and I noticed at this coffee shop there were just a lot of elderly guys that went down. They were obviously retired, and part of what they did was they would just go down and hang out. So they'd go down to this coffee shop, Sydney's, at like 8:30, and they would just sit there till noon or 1 or 2. So people would come by and say hi, and sometimes people would sit down. It was almost like therapy. So people would come in, they'd sit, they'd hang out with these guys, then they'd get up and leave and go on with their day. Well, when I had more time, I would sit with these guys, and I found that the more time I spent with them, the more I just was like, man, these guys are just cool. And, there were women in the group, and it was very casual. And I said, I think I like just kind of hanging out, swapping stories, getting learning from them, their wisdom. And so it was kind of at that point where I said, I think I want to do something that involves, just kind of hanging out with seniors. So that's really how it started. From there, what happened was, a lot of them said, hey, what do you do? What do you, do you do anything? I mean, if my daughter came into town, would you pick her up from the airport and we'd pay you? And it kind of became like this little kind of boutique kind of business that I was running. And then that led to, everybody loved the dog, and it led to kind of this whole companion care thing.
Right. That's awesome.
Yeah.
So, what's interesting is, all these guys and women who were at the coffee shop, they're likely not dealing with isolation and loneliness because they have each other.
Right.
But there are a lot of seniors out there who do face that. So talk about some of the services you provide and how that can help prevent that. And obviously, Murray's involvement too.
Yeah, so it's huge. So social isolation, and then when you look at how it played out during COVID, I was actually even one of those guys that you'd see on the news where they would go stand outside the window of a facility just so that the mom or dad of one of my clients knew that they were getting some kind of interaction, because social isolation, loneliness they're killers. With the pop, as we continue to live longer, which we see people now in their 90s and early 100s, most of them have found some kind of stimulation to keep them going to that point. But what I wanted to do is kind of bridge that gap. And it doesn't mean that you have to spend hours and hours and hours of time with people, but people just need a little bit of time so they feel good about themselves, they boost their morale, and And that's where the dog came in handy too, where what I would do as part of my business was, it was this companion care. It really was truly like fighting off this isolation and loneliness. And it was important to me because I was kind of joining them on the journey of, I was meeting them where they were at. And a lot of my clients, their children didn't live in San Diego. So it wasn't something where they could just go, hey, I'll run over and see my mom and bring her lunch and hang out. They lived in New York, Florida, wherever. So it was crazy. And so they needed somebody that they could count on outside of a staff member that could help them out, because these facilities are understaffed or whatever. They just don't make the connection with the resident. So in that regards, I'd like to think that over the course of that time that I helped maybe prolong some life.
Right.
I hope. But to just bring a little joy was something that was a big deal for me.
Well, it helps prolong life, and it also makes the life that you are helping prolong be more enriching too.
Yeah.
So you're helping people who are living in maybe senior communities, also at home.
Yep.
I'm guessing, and you become sort of like a surrogate son.
Yep.
In a lot of ways, combined with sort of the the jack of all trades. So I mean, you talked about going to see someone at the community, but also maybe picking someone up at the airport, or you mentioned something like that too.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I became kind of like this patient advocate / surrogate's a good word. I never use that one, but it was kind of like that, where you became kind of part of the family, and you just filled in the needs that were there. So you just, whatever they needed. Hey, you know what, Mark? It'd be great if you stopped by CVS and picked up my mom some, she loves Dove chocolate. So if you're out and about, could you do that? Stop by, spend a few minutes with her. I know they'd say I called her earlier, but she's lonely or whatever. So I did it. I became part of the family, really. And so when my clients would pass, I mean, that's the sad part of what I was doing and what I still do, is that the end is pretty much the same. I don't usually lose clients because they don't like me. It is what it is. But then the family and I have usually stay friends, the kids, and I have lots of pictures and lots of letters of recommendation, not to toot my own horn or with Murray, but it is kind of a cool thing to join them in this part, on this part of their life. Mm-hmm. Even though it is the tail end, it's always interesting to me to see, I wonder what this person was like back when they were younger. But I also, I think what made it successful was I reserved judgment on the family or this, because I would deal with families that would say, oh, you don't even know what my mom was like. She was this, or my dad was, and I'd say, I don't really care. Yeah. I'm not meeting them there.
Right.
I'm meeting them here.
Your experience with them is the here and now.
Here and now. So I try to stay present, and I think I've done a good job with it, and I've certainly enjoyed it.
Yeah, and I bet you Murray enjoys it too.
He's a hit. He's most people want to see him. Less of me, more of him. And he's been a wonderful part of it. He's been a huge part of it. Good dog, funny, just sits there, hangs out. But you know what they say, dogs lower blood pressure, and so a lot of times people just like to just look at him because he doesn't do a whole lot.
Right.
He just kind of hangs.
But he's a good companion.
Yeah, he's a good companion, and he's perfect for this kind of business.
Right. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. So if you want to learn more about Mark and his business and how you can connect with him to help either for yourself or for a loved one, his information is on the screen, phone number, email address, and all that kind of good stuff. Mark, thank you very much for coming on and talking about really how we can combine as a village help prevent some of the isolation we see with seniors out there.
Yeah, anytime, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Thank you.